right, welcome everybody to the Water Tower Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Nick Milan. To my left or your right is Mr. Jay Yoder, and right below us is Mr. Craig Martinez. Hey, Craig.
Hey.
Yeah, that's us. So Water Tower Podcast, you can find us online, Facebook, Instagram, all that good jazz.
iTunes, Spotify.
iTunes and Spotify, yes. Jay got us up. So we are up and running officially as a podcast that you can download to your iTunes store or Spotify app. So how cool is that? Thanks, Jay. Hit the subscribe button and click that little bell if you want to get notifications. So moving right along, Jay, you're in Sacramento. I'm in Sacramento. Craig is a little further from Sacramento than some may think. Craig, where you at, man?
I'm in Singapore, Southeast Asia.
What the fuck?
Well, everyone doesn't know. I mean, some Lindsay people know, but we grew up with Craig from Lindsay, California, a small town. He's since we were little kids, we knew Craig, and he recently moved from San Francisco to Singapore. And so, Craig, tell us how that came about.
Yeah, small town to small country. But so basically, yeah, my wife and I had always wanted to get some international business experience, and travel abroad. We both got the travel bug. Neither one of us had the opportunity to live abroad. So we weren't, in the military stationed abroad or studied abroad in college or anything like that. So we, had always wanted to do it. So we had the opportunity to do so, last year, and we really jumped on it. So we had kind of done this exercise about a year and a half ago where we're like, all right, we've been talking about this for a while. We're not getting any younger. If we're going to do it, let's do it now. Now's the opportunity to do so. So we both kind of came up with our independent lists of places that we wanted to potentially live in the world independently, and kind of overlaid those over each other, and then saw kind of what overlapped, whittled it down a little bit that way, and then kind of thought like, all right, well, what makes sense from like a business experience perspective? Where do people speak English? Where's the food good? Where's a good jumping off point to kind of travel to some other surrounding areas? We on our honeymoon back in 2015, we did Southeast Asia. We did Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand. We really liked the area. So we're like, Singapore kind of fits all those. Also, not in Southeast Asia, but it's not too far away is Hong Kong. So we had kind of whittled it down to those two places that made the most sense. Took about a week, spent about a week in each city and visited each place to kind of get to know the personality of each spot, and ultimately decided on Singapore just because we liked the weather, the food, and all that stuff that I had mentioned previously. And then started applying for jobs. My wife got one last November, moved out here in November. I wrapped things up in San Francisco through the end of the year, and then moved out here in early January, and been here ever since.
Holy shit, man. That's fucking awesome, Craig. That's everybody's dream, right? Is just to pack up and go to another country, man. And you fucking did it, man. Good for you, Craig.
Yeah. And you know what the hardest part about it was? Not getting my happy ass out here is getting the dog out here. That was the most difficult part. Yeah, we have a little dog, and like importing small animals because it's a small country, like worried about rabies and all that stuff. So we had to go like 2 rounds of rabies shots in the U.S. and there's only one place in the U.S. that does an international rabies vaccine verification, and that's at Kansas State. So we had to send that off to Kansas State, and then do a vet inspection, multiple other shots and vaccinations and stuff too. Take that all to Sacramento. Hello, Sacramento. And then, mail that, bring that with us, and then have the dog quarantined for 10 days once we got here. Like, it was an ordeal. Like, so it is like kind of something that we've been looking forward to, but there's a lot of logistical stuff that went into it that we didn't really anticipate. That makes it a challenge, but definitely worth it.
Yeah, we took a cat from the Netherlands. Me and my ex took a cat from the Netherlands, 2 cats from the Netherlands to Oakland, and that was a pain in the ass. I can imagine in Singapore is pretty. They seem pretty strict on rules, and so
sure.
Kind of brings me to a question I have to ask you, Craig. And what's the weed situation like?
Nil.
It is.
Big fat zero.
Nothing. Dude, it's like there's signs as soon as you enter the country. It's like capital punishment if you bring any drugs, including marijuana, into the country. They will kill you. I'm not kidding. You will die. You get caught with that. So it's like not fucking around. I'm not going to even attempt or even think about any of that shit. Like, no, just don't even do it. There, and plus, even if you were and you were to like buy something here, it fucking sucks anyway. So it's like not even worth. It's not worth it. So like you see in the news, the local news outlet is called the Straits Times. There was an article a couple weeks ago. Somebody who tried to bring over. It was funny. They said tons of like a bunch of marijuana and ice smuggling. Like they called it actual ice in the newspaper. Like somebody was trying to bring meth over the border. Those people are now probably dead or on their way to being dead. Somebody was caught in Malaysia, just across the border, with like 1,000 ecstasy pills. They were Singaporean. They then get brought back to Singapore. Those people are now probably on their way to being dead. So it's like things get a little stickier, I think, if you're an American, because, you know, Americans have a lot of clout here. I mean, like the governments work very closely together. Not like I have any clout here. But like if I were to get caught with something, there would be a big like to do about it, and the governments would probably like kind of spar about it, because, you know, Americans don't agree with killing people over weed. So there would be some kind of battle there, and it'd be tougher to, I guess it's weird to say, but to kill me for that. But they would try for sure.
Yeah, we don't kill for weed, just for racism. That's not funny, but you know. But like, yeah. It's crazy because I would say you're a weed connoisseur since back in the Lindsay days, high school. And how have you felt? I felt it. Yeah. This is how we do it here, Craig, Water Tower Podcast.
Bullshit, smoking pot.
I'm ready. Yeah, for another time. But
hey, I thought Texas was bad. God damn, Craig.
Yeah, no, there's no messing around with that stuff. It's like they say if you know the right people, you can find it. It's here. I mean, if people are trying to smuggle it in here, there's got to be demand for it, and people are obviously smoking it here. But I'm like, I walk around and I'm like, even if I did have some here, like, again, one, it sucks. So like I wouldn't even like want to like the pictures in that article I was talking about. It's like the swaggiest mids at the best. So it's like. It wouldn't even be worth it. But two, if I did, like, where would I go? Like, one, it smells when you smoke it. So like, where would I go? And two, like, if somebody saw in the U.S., like, if people see you doing something wrong, like, especially smoking weed, but like, not to say that smoking weed's wrong, but if you see you doing like something illegal or questionable, morally questionable, they're more likely to turn a blind eye and be like, well, it's none of my business, you know. So like, here, they'll fucking call the cops and they'll rat your ass out. So it's like they take pride in how clean and how orderly and how efficient things run, like to the point where people like proactively, you know, take action against nefarious like acts. So I wouldn't even do it if I had the chance.
Well, yeah, you'd risk your life and then you wouldn't even get high.
Yeah. Talk about paranoid thoughts. Like I can't even imagine where my mind would go in that.
So have you felt better? Like I've heard some people quitting weed, they love it. I've heard other stories where people are like, I need it. Like I need it every once in a while. How do you feel?
No, it's fine. I mean, like, you know, first couple of weeks I was like, man, you know, it feels a lot different. I wish I could, you know, I've definitely missed it. But now I'm like, I just don't even think about it anymore. Kind of forgot about it. So it's fine. I got to fill my time with other, you know, more productive things. So it's good.
But do you feel like healthier or like more active or anything like that?
Nah, not really. I mean, like just bored. So I played, you know, it feels like it's missing from some things, like playing video games. You know, or if I don't, instead of like sitting on the couch or something, I'll go out and I'll go for a run. You know, it's just like, so I'm like, oh, I feel healthier in that sense because I've been like running a shitload. But, you know, outside of that, like, nah.
You get that runner's high.
Yeah, that's bullshit, by the way.
No, it's not. No, it's not. You gotta run more, Craig. Well, you're not going to be like weed high, that's for sure. If you're looking for that, definitely not.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But, you know, I did a little bit of research, like a tad bit on Singapore last night, a little bit right before we started, and they're really into caning, like caning people. And I'm imagining that's not you grab a cane and walk out in the park and twirl it around. Is it like that's just a punishment, like where they tie you up and cane you?
Yeah, and it's all on the ass. This was surprising that I learned. It's like you should Google this. Maybe you can insert like a YouTube video here. They don't have any videos on it being done in Singapore probably because Singapore monitors that stuff, frankly. But you can find it being done in like Malaysia. But basically, they, if you get caught for something, doing something illegal, it's usually more like big time, highly illegal stuff. Not just like jaywalking or something like that. But basically, they like strap you into this ordeal. Like imagine, like not like a big X. Your legs are kind of fastened this way, and your arms are kind of fastened this way, and then you're kind of like bent over, and your bare ass is exposed. And it's a cane, and a cane is like basically a bamboo stick, but at the end it's frayed. So like think of like the end of like very strong bristles, not like a broom brush, but like very strong, sharp bristles. And they like wham, they'll do it over your ass. I think the most they can give you is 24, because after about 4 or 5 hits, it starts to break the skin. So like they hit you really hard, but they're humane about it, right? There's a specific amount of force that they're supposed to drive behind that. There's like a person, it's like the equivalent of like the hangman. There's somebody who that's his job is like the caner. He knows how hard to hit you, like how to hit you, and all that. So, and they have somebody monitoring who's like talking to you the whole time, like, okay, Craig, that's hit number 5. You've only got 6 to go, like coaching you through it the whole time. So like there's somebody not holding your hand, but kind of like guiding you through it while you're being whipped on the ass in jail.
Sounds like
the weird part. Sorry, real quick. The weird part is like, say you're in jail so you get a 5-year sentence, prison, whatever, and caning is part of your sentencing. They don't tell you when it is. So there's like a mental punishment to it too. So it could be on day 1, and it could be on day, the last day of your punishment. So you have to sit there and worry and fear, when is this caning coming too?
That's worse. That's worse.
Yeah.
That is. But you know what? People pay for that kind of treatment here in the States. Shit.
I want you to get in trouble on purpose over there.
No, you should look it up. It does not look pleasant at all.
God damn, that sounds. But you know what? It's interesting that you say that. People appreciate the order there. It almost sounds like your utopian type neighborhood, almost like. It's almost like. So I don't know. I mean, I got to ask. What about like stay-in-place orders over there? Are people like really following that there?
For the most part, yeah. And I think people are more likely to follow them. And well, first I'll say yes, but I think people are more likely to follow them because they're more in tune and open to kind of more of a controlling government, because that's something that they're used to. And they're open to that because they see that it works, and they take a lot of pride in, again, how orderly things are, how clean things are, how safe it is, how efficient everything runs. So because things work for everybody, people are more apt to kind of fall in line and see the value of some of those things. So yeah, people are following. Though you do see things like articles of people who have left the house when they were under quarantine, whether or not they had the coronavirus or not. So, if you come in close contact with somebody who has been diagnosed, you'll be put on stay-at-home order for 14 days. And if you leave that, you will get put in jail, or you'll get fined heavily for that. There was one guy who was not a citizen or a permanent resident, or he was a permanent resident. He was from another country, moved here, had been here for a long time, and got permanent resident status. Which is kind of like getting your green card in the U.S. or something like that, getting your citizenship. He left his house for a few hours while he was on stay-at-home orders. The government stripped him of his permanent resident status and shipped him back to where he was from. Oh, so shit. They don't fuck around with that stuff at all.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I guess we skipped a section. So. You move to Singapore to start a new life. You do this research. You do all this shit to get your dog over there. And you get there. And we fucking get hit with this crazy pandemic that just basically flipped the world upside down. And I mean, how was that between you and your wife and that whole reaction?
Well, yeah, the thing was, like, the toughest part was finding a job, right? Like, I moved out here. I quit my job in San Francisco. She had a job out here, thankfully. But then, when I moved out here, I didn't have a job. And, it took the first, I just gone through the holidays, packed up our entire apartment, put everything in storage, moved things to my parents' place, got everything, stacked away, and then took our dog, went through that whole ordeal, and then moved all the way across the country, and then landed on January 6th. And then, so after all of that, I was like, all right, I'm going to take a week off and just kind of chill out after going through all that, and then I'll start looking for a job. And then right when I start looking for a job, it's like, boom, coronavirus hits, the economy takes a hit, and nobody's hiring anymore, right? So it's just like, shit, like, this is a bad idea. Like, what timing, right? So that was definitely a struggle. Eventually, it worked out. Things were just really slow. It's not like everybody stopped hiring 100%, but things were just moving a lot more slowly than they were previously. But other than that, things were going great. We were, exploring the country a whole bunch, but then slowly but surely other like travel restrictions started getting put in place, right? And one of the main reasons we chose Singapore was so that we could jump off to other countries nearby, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia and stuff, places that are really easy to get to within a 2-hour flight. You can do a short haul flight and go and explore a completely different place. But now all of a sudden it's like, if you can go to these countries, Singapore says, but when you return, you got to go into a 14-day quarantine. That was one of the first, regulations put in place. And then it was like, okay, now, then it was like, okay, now not just Southeast Asia. Now, if you're coming in from Taiwan, or if you're coming in from the United States or Australia, you got to go into 14-day quarantine. Then it was like, you can't go anywhere without having to go into a quarantine at all. And then it became, you can't come back into this country at all until after May 1st. And then that just got extended. Now it's June 1st. So there's no leaving and coming back at all unless you're a long-term, unless you're a permanent resident or a citizen. So the sucky part right now is that it kind of put a pause on our travel, which is a big thing we moved here for. But with good reason, and I'm sure it'll be lifted up pretty soon. So we'll get to that eventually.
Wow. Now, is your living situation, I've been to your place in San Francisco, is it comparable in size? I imagine it'd be smaller, but San Francisco will surprise you. So how's your place compared to San Francisco?
Yeah, it is smaller. Yeah, we lived in a pretty small place in San Francisco too. So it's a 1-bedroom place. It's a nice place, but it's small. 1 bedroom, probably 450 square foot, under 500 square foot. It's a little place. But they're pretty efficient in how they kind of structure these things. Like, we have pretty much all the stuff that we had. Well, maybe not quite as much stuff as we had there, but we're able to fit things. They have like the ceilings are high, and you can store stuff better. And I don't know, just the way that they organize things. It's like one big IKEA apartment. So there's a place for everything.
Nice. Yeah, it looks pretty roomy, like the tall ceilings.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like these Singapore people are fucking getting along quite well.
Everybody's starting to get stir crazy. It's interesting because the number of cases, for a long time, Singapore was, kind of noted as one of the prime examples, along with like South Korea and Taiwan, around places that like had handled it very well. Then just in the last couple of weeks, the number of cases here specifically really started to spike. And it's kind of in specific area, and that's where the migrant workers are housed. They're kind of like packed in, like 12 in a room. It's definitely not great living quarters. So when the virus got there, it kind of easily spread really quickly, and the numbers like really spiked up. So it's, for a week there were like 1,000 cases per day, which for a small population in this country is quite a bit. But in the general community, it was only about 35 per day. So, but even still, they put everybody on lockdown in the entire country. they do take pretty aggressive measures, and those numbers have started to come down. But I think, like I mentioned earlier, people are a bit more kind of okay with those measures because they're kind of used to the strong hand of the government and, more willing to comply. But, and it sucks because you don't have some of those freedoms that you would normally like to have, but it seems to be working.
How long were you there before this COVID thing got locked down? When you got locked down because of COVID?
Yeah, I think in March, late March is when, maybe it was early April, when the actual lockdown went in place. It actually, most people were able to go continue their daily lives for a while, even after the U.S. had put some of those tighter restrictions in place. The Singaporeans were still able to kind of move about pretty freely. It wasn't until I think early April that they started, saying, okay, non-essential businesses need to start closing down, and then people need to stay at home.
So you did have some freedom when you got there to go visit certain landmarks and stuff like that?
Yeah, for a couple months. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that's good. I mean, better than nothing, I guess. But so,
Yeah.
What's the food situation like? I've always heard about the food in Singapore. I was on a ship that was docked in Singapore. We refueled. We weren't even able to get off. We just got fuel and got out of there. But I always hear about the food, the fusions and the different cultures that have been there. What's it like?
Yeah, I would say the Singaporean food and the local Asian food is amazing. So, but at the same time, there are things that I crave, like getting a good burrito where they don't have dick of. So it's like, I can't get, I've tried damn near every taco in town and they're all pretty terrible. So that sucks. But other than that, the local food though is really good. And that's what people are talking about when they say that the food here is really good. You just think about the surrounding areas like Thailand. So the Thai food is really good. And Vietnamese food is really good. The Indian food is phenomenal. But Singaporean food, a lot of times it kind of is a fusion of a lot of those different things. So it pulls in some of those good elements from a lot of those different cuisines. So it is really good. There are certain dishes that are completely unique to this country as well that are definitely worth trying. So highly encourage coming out and trying some of it. The booze situation is okay. They have mostly lager beers, like Tiger beer, which is kind of a lighter beer, like a Coors Light or something like that. So that's all right. That's what they're good at making. That's what they're known for. You can get good beer and wine and alcohol, but you got to pay a pretty hefty premium for it to get it out here. So cost of living is definitely a little bit lower than San Francisco, but the alcohol costs a lot more, so it all evens out. But so not safe anymore, that's for sure.
So man, you're just getting all healthy with the smoking and the drinking and no burritos,
Oh no, I'm still drinking. I just pay a lot more for it now.
It's your budget.
So there's no Lola's taco truck out there.
No, god damn it. No, man. There's not I mean, the best that we found was this little corner Mexican grocery store, which was pretty surprising to find in the first place, and then going and buying all the ingredients and making it ourselves. That's how I'm getting by.
Did
Have you
Mexicans
found
work
a
there?
good? So sorry, go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
Did Mexicans work there?
I've found 3. Yeah, and they work in the Mexican restaurants. Yeah.
Nice.
And they're probably making the food going, fuck, this food sucks.
Well, Craig, Craig, I don't know if you know this, Nick. Craig worked with me for a short while at the Mint Karaoke Bar. We talked about last episode as the not so straight bar that I had to work at after college to get by. But just to save up for your wedding, you worked there, but you fell in love with dirty martinis, I believe, right? And have you found a good dirty martini there?
It's not what I would typically order when I go to to a bar here. I would probably order, I don't know. They're more into gin drinks here. It's just I think it's one because of the British influence. Gin's more of a British drink, but also because it's fucking hot outside all the time. Gin is just more of a refreshing, easier, kind of a lighter drink. So that's and that's what they tend to use. And I'm a vodka martini guy myself. I'm not a big gin drinker, so martinis just isn't what I typically go for. I'll go for a whiskey. Japanese whiskey is pretty legit, so that's what I've been drinking a lot of that, and a lot of lager beer.
Habiko?
Yeah, or old Suntory old whiskey. That's my favorite right
They're
now.
killing it with like the whiskey competitions last few years. It's like some of the best whiskeys out is from Japan. It's insane.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Well,
so I got to ask, Craig, what is the view of the administration of the U.S. over there?
They take a pretty objective stance on things. It's not like, I would say reading through the news here, it's not like, there's certainly some bias in a lot of the major U.S. news outlets, right?
No, I don't believe that.
Lean left or they lean right, and here they take a pretty objective stance. And they don't take sides, really. I think they're kind of careful about that, frankly, because they have pretty close ties with the United States for a lot of things, like the military. Like, I think the United States gives a lot of equipment, provides a lot of equipment to Singapore. There's not a big military here at all. It's a tiny country. And there's a lot of like benefits that are given to Americans when it comes to like buying a home or something like that here that aren't necessarily available to other nationals. So I think they don't criticize as heavily as they would towards the United States as because of taking that objective stance as like some of the news outlets in the United States would. But I kind of miss the drama, to tell you. Like I miss some of that action where it's like a lot of infighting and a lot of like, no fuck you, no fuck you. Like when it comes to like kind of the political scene, it's just entertaining. I don't know. It's like reality television, and you don't get that here. It's a little bit more sterile.
Literally, it's reality television with our president.
And we'll be seeing those in our comments in the near future, I'm sure.
Yeah, I bet.
You were talking about the American relations. You asked Nick. I'm curious too about the Chinese relations. What's that? How's that been affected by COVID? How was it before? Is it still the same? Is it existent?
Yeah, no, there's certainly a heavy Chinese population here. Interesting enough, about 35% of the Singaporean population is expats. So coming in, there's Chinese, there's heavy Indian population, and then British and some United States. It's not the most, and then Malaysian, of course, because it's the neighbor just to the north. So when it comes to the relationship with China, there's a lot of people who are from China, are ethnically Chinese, and so there's pretty close ties to that government. But that said, Singapore is a financial powerhouse when it comes to Asia as well. So they kind of do their own thing. It's not like there's China is looming over any of the decisions that come from Singapore at all.
Interesting. So they're friends with China and the U.S. Damn, that's a good place to be.
Yeah. I don't know if maybe they're friends. I don't know. It's tough. It's like everybody kind of gives China the side eye. And I don't know if the government, does a pretty good job of managing that relationship. I would say the Singaporean citizens might have like kind of a different opinion of like actual Chinese. They're pretty opinionated, and they can be kind of stuffy and judgmental towards other nationalities as well, Chinese and Indians as well, from what I've seen.
Interesting.
Well, we don't experience that here, so I wonder what that's like.
I've never.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, it's everywhere in the world. Everybody's got biases and has different experiences and projects that upon other cultures and stuff. Not healthy all the time, but it happens.
But hey, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up though, Craig, because we don't see that. We don't see that here. We don't see that kind of other discrimination. All we see is white and black in this country. But you're right, man. Shit, that's all over the place, and we're never exposed to any of that.
Yeah. I've seen like online, there's a lot of comments towards like it sounds terrible to say, but like, Indians and like, calling them like third-rate citizens and stuff of Asia and stuff. It's like really terrible things that they say. And but that's the citizens. The government realizes very much that there's a very diverse culture within a very small area, and that measures need to be taken in order to help everybody kind of get along and kind of intermingle. So like even they have housing facilities here called CBDs. I forget what it stands for, and it's not the CBD that you're used to, but it's like kind of a local housing that the citizens can purchase, and they have race quotas within those buildings. So like within the buildings, like a certain amount have to go to local Singaporeans, and only a certain amount can go to Indians, and a certain amount can go to Malaysians. Like they want there to be like an equal ethnic mix throughout these buildings, which is good because it provides equality, equal opportunity for some of these different cultures. At the same time, it can provide some challenges as well, because there's these mixing of religions and cultures that take place. So like somebody will be like cooking, a Chinese family cooking pork, and then maybe there's a Muslim family that's that doesn't like that, or somebody's cooking beef, and then an Indian family doesn't like that, right? So it's like, and then they'll complain, call the police or something like that, and then they'll just be like, hey, these people have different beliefs than you do, so you have to deal with that. Like and there's like kind of a lot of thought put into kind of ensuring that people are getting along and kind of mixing and mingling in a friendly way. So it actually goes into some of their government policies that you see, which is pretty interesting.
Super interesting, man. You know what? I don't know. I don't even know how to respond to that, because
I didn't either. Like I was out. We were having drinks with some friends, and that came up, and they were explaining that to me, and I was like, really? Like people are actually enforcing that shit? Like who do they side with? Do they side with the sensitivities of the culture whose like sensibilities are being, or their culture's being kind of offended, or the offenders, or like who do you side with? And they're like, hey, you have to let people live, right? You can't tell people like you can't do that because the guy on the floor above you doesn't like that smell. You got to tell that guy like, hey, we're all in this together. You have to let him do his thing. So they sided with the freedoms, which is kind of interesting in this country, where it's kind of known as being, like Disneyland with the death penalty, and very kind of controlling of certain aspects of people's lives. So they do put in an effort to kind of make things free. That said, there is a video camera as soon as you step out of your apartment, and you are probably on camera everywhere you go when you walk down the street. So it's like there are certain things that are in your life at every moment. But if you don't think about it, it's fine. But if you do think about it, you will see, and you look for it, you will see a camera just about everywhere you go, which can be scary. But they're also, like I've said a couple times, they're pretty open to that stuff because they do see the value, like tracking COVID-19 cases. If you're known to be somebody who's near somebody who's diagnosed with coronavirus, they want to trace that, and you can't remember where you were for the past 2 weeks, because they want to know everywhere you were the past 2 weeks and who you could have come in contact with. If there's a day you can't forget, they'll go to the tape. They'll go to the camera and be like, oh, you said you were at McDonald's at this time and you can't remember where you went afterward? Well, let's follow the camera from McDonald's. Okay, you went here, then you went that direction, and then they'll kind of like pinpoint your path after that, and which is kind of scary, but at the same time also helps identify where you were, and then identify other people who could be exposed to the virus, and then kind of put them in quarantine for the safety of the people as well. So they're heavily involved, but people seem to be open to it because of the benefits that it creates as well.
Well, that's like we always talk about 1984, the was it George Orwell book, and we all know it's going that direction. I know the UK has some places like that. Hell, in certain lower end neighborhoods with high crime rates, I know that cameras, some famous, I forget what they call it, some famous like hip hop beginning neighborhoods have that there too, where they're watched 24/7, and it seems like a weird thing that's in Singapore, but it is here. We just don't really hear about it too much in certain neighborhoods. But it's how does that make you feel, like growing up without that, and then now that's there?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned 1984 because I reread that book right before I came out here, and that was a bad idea. but because like there is a lot of some of those things. Yeah, I mean, they're not like in your face all the time, but anyway, it was kind of unnerving at first to see the cameras. Like, it's not just in the train stations, it's like on the telephone poles and going down the sidewalks and things too. So it's like it's in places where you're used to seeing it and where you feel it's normal, like for security purposes, but it's also just about everywhere. So that was unnerving, but then you kind of forget about it because it doesn't impact your daily life. It's not like, oh, I crossed the street when there was a red light and then a ticket showed up in the mail because somebody saw it, right? Like, none of that takes place. So I think because of that, it's like people are more open to it, and it doesn't impact your daily life. So it's not kind of this looming presence, at least not anymore. It kind of was at first. I was pretty nervous at first. Now I'm okay.
That kind of reminds me of a story. Like a few months back, I was with a company called Metromile for my car insurance, and they have a GPS and they charge you per mile. And I didn't drive much in the city, so it made sense. But I moved back to the Central Valley of California, and I got someone hit me, hit and run, a pretty bad accident. But I luckily was able just to get a little bit damage in the bumper, but I made a mistake filling out the claim. They're like, is it drivable? And I'm between San Francisco and Visalia, California, which is about 4 hours, with traffic maybe 5. And I was halfway there, and I was like, well, I'm not staying here. I'll be fine. Yeah, it's drivable. Not thinking I was going to screw myself later when I was trying to get it fixed. And the claims department was outsourced to some company in Albuquerque, I think, if I remember correctly. And they were just not returning my calls. I couldn't get a hold of anyone. Long story short, I had to drive for my freelance business to drop off some T-shirts at the time. I designed some T-shirts and I had them printed out. And I drove from Visalia to Lindsay, which was about 45 minutes. And I had the bumper. I'm taping it on. I'm doing kinds of stupid stuff to keep that bumper up. And when I get on the next day, I get on the claims, and they're like, hey, like, is your car drivable? I'm like, I said it was, but it's not really. Like, the bumper's barely hanging on, man. I got to get it fixed. Like, well, it's drivable still, so we're going to only give you this certain amount of money so it's drivable. I'm like, it is drivable, but like I literally like putting screws and crap on the bumper just to keep it up to get through stuff.
Yeah. I mean, a wheel without a tire on it is technically drivable, right? I mean, so.
Well, that's my fear about these cameras, because I was like, look, they're like, have you drove it? I'm like, I've drove it here and there, little places. Now, if you're from the Central Valley, driving to Lindsay is like a normal occurrence from Visalia to Porterville to wherever. It's a bunch of small towns. You have to do it sometimes. Now, he's from a city, I'm assuming Albuquerque or San Francisco. I don't know which one, but he was like, oh, you didn't drive 45 miles to Lindsay in the 45 or whatever. Like, he called me out like on the GPS thing, and I was just like, yeah, I did. He's like, seems like a long ways. I'm like, well, I had to do it. And he's just, so that's what because I was like, he was using that information against me, even though to me, Lindsay is just like a drive down from Visalia where I got to drop off stuff and bring it back with screws in my bumper to keep it up, because I'm not going to lose money. And that's what I get scared about, those little like gray areas where they try to use it against you. And it's like, yeah, I did. But like, to me, that distance is not far into the valley, but to someone trying not to give you money, they're going to use it against you,
Yeah. And I think that's the fear with some of the things, like they're developing an app in the US for like helping trace people's locations so that, if you came into contact with somebody who had COVID-19, then they can kind of trace other people and ping them and let them know that they may have come in contact with you, right, as a heads up. That's something that was put in place in Singapore like 2 months ago. So it's like something that was already launched and they're okay with. I think it's interesting to see the different perspectives. Again, people tend to be okay with it because they're kind of used to that heavy involvement and giving up of some of the privacy for kind of the betterment of society, right? What's good for the gander is good for the goose, kind of a type of a thought mentality. But in the U.S., where they're more like kind of very much freedom focused, rightly so, I get that, because a lot of these apps and things, and kind of invasions of privacy, have kind of a nasty history of sticking around longer than what they were initially intended for. So I think that's kind of where a lot of that fear stems from, right? Because it can eventually fall into the wrong hands or be used against you, in some cases as well.
Hey, well, coincidentally, we just talked about that last week, right, Jay?
Yeah, I think
giving up certain freedoms in the name of safety.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? It's funny, Craig, that you mentioned how you're not going to get a ticket for jaywalking on a red light or running a red light or whatever, And it just seems like here, and of course I'm just being generalizing the topic, but like Jay said, they do use it against you, and it's like that greed mentality, right? It's like I'm going to get you for whatever I can get you. But it doesn't seem like, is greed a big thing over there? I mean, are there certain corporations in power, and do they have relations with I don't know if you know that, you're so new, but just a lot of greed here. I mean, it sounds like there's not there.
I mean, they are certainly business friendly here, that's for sure. I don't know if it's not perceived as greed, I don't think. I don't think there's this disdain here for larger companies like there is, in other countries. It's kind of like, the government. Singapore, a very small country with really not much to offer as far as like natural resources, right? There's no oil, there's no like large deposits of minerals and things here. So what do they have to offer? Well, we can be a port city and a place for other countries to come and store things, right? And have, there's literally at least 1,000 tankers in the bay on any given day here. And that's because of the tax friendliness that they offer here as a central location between East and West. And, countries like the Middle East, transporting oil, going up the Pacific to Japan and over to the United States and North America. So they offer, that tax friendliness that they offer brings in tons of corporations. So and the country has blown up in a short amount of time because of that and because of the presence of those companies and the jobs that they've created. So I think that people are more open to that. They don't perceive it as greed. I think they perceive it more as opportunity. I think that's the mentality that I've noticed so far anyway.
Well, you know what? It makes me feel like, if they were just open about what they're doing with us here, right? Because we don't have a camera on telephone poles and we don't have camera everywhere we look. That doesn't mean that they can't keep an eye on us, right? I mean, like you said, Apple and Google are working on this tracker app, and that's just a drop in the pan of what they are capable of doing, right? I mean, you can probably see the color of a person's eyes from a satellite, in orbit. That's how good the technology is, right? So, I mean, they can certainly do that here. So why not just tell us like they do there? And I think people would just be like, well, I don't know. I mean, protesters, blocking hospitals and ambulance, that's a whole nother story. But I don't know. For me personally, like if they're just like, okay, well, here's what we're going to do, fuckers. And we're like, well, what am I going to do about it? Okay, well, thanks for letting me know. Like,
aren't we already doing that by, one, we have cell phones. These are definitely trackable.
Right.
We sign with terms and services that we don't read all the time that give up certain rights. The data is making tons of money off of us. The DMVs sold it for tons of money, more than they make through the DMV, I believe, one year. And we agree to it, and we know it's happening, but we like to bitch about it. And until we we want our iPhones or our smartphones, so we will sign the dot. We want to sign up for a new app. But yeah, it's like Edward Snowden, was it on Vice? He did an interview recently where he talked about not only can your Wi-Fi router track you through your cell phone, but also your neighbor's Wi-Fi routers are able to track your cell phone. So they could definitely, just with that, know where you're at all times, unless you're in the middle of Buffalo, Egypt,
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you there, Jay, where it's like, it's already being done, but when it comes to the forefront in the news, just like, I think the mentality is like freedoms first, where people are kind of adverse or think of worst case scenarios of what could happen. But when you look at places like Singapore, where those measures are in place and those worst case scenarios haven't happened, doesn't necessarily mean they just haven't happened yet. But at the same time, like, I don't think there's much concern for it going, kind of in a nefarious direction, or like people's like lives are going to be impacted in a terrible way, anytime soon, or even, further down the line. So I don't know. I think, yeah, you're right. I think people just like to bitch about it, and they're worried about what could potentially happen, which I think, isn't always unfounded. People have to worry about, kind of what could happen or how your life could be negatively impacted. But, if there's no evidence of that happening, and it's saving lives in some cases now, then sometimes you have to kind of give up some of those temporary freedoms for the benefit of society.
Well, and see, that's kind of what I was getting at was, I know, we all agree, and this is happening, this is going on, but there are those, they're just not telling us bluntly that this is what's going on, right? It took a whistleblower like Edward Snowden to tell us that they're surveilling us on every device at all the time. Whereas, where you're at, they're like, hey, fuckers, well, this is what we're doing. We're surveilling you, no whistleblower needed here. And this is what we're doing. And so I think it just gives people that doubt, right, which makes them kind of freak out and develop all these conspiracies around it and what's going to happen in worst case scenarios. Whereas if they just, say, yeah, this is what we're doing. And, and then, of course, obviously not do anything bad with that information. But I think people would be more apt to just kind of being okay with it, I guess.
Like if it's out in the, kind of like Singapore's doing, like out in the public, like I feel like Americans are a weird breed, especially 50% of America. Well, we're all 100% Americans a weird breed, but there is that like don't tread on me, fuck you type vibe, which I definitely like. Although I do think it gets a little overboard, but if they're like, hey, we're gonna put cameras up everywhere, you guys cool with that? This is for the betterment of society. We're gonna burn them down like they're burning down 5G things in London. It's like, so they know they have to be secretive and sneaky about it, and legally we're still terms of service. Click it. I never read one of those. I couldn't probably get through it. It's so thick, But it's yeah, I don't think it would work here. I think it eventually will get there forcefully, but I think they have to be sly about it here.
Yeah, there's a good South Park episode on that if you haven't seen it, on reading the terms of service and the things that they're agreeing to.
On what?
On terms of service, like people keep blindly agreeing to them, and then just like terrible, they're agreeing to terrible things. I recommend checking that.
Checking out what though? What show?
Oh, South Park. South Park.
Well, they're always on top of it.
Yeah. Right. Fucked up stuff that you're agreeing to.
Butthole pleasures.
Yeah. Yeah, well, as I don't know if we caught that in the opening, but Jay with the cigar was obviously open to that from the very beginning. So
yes, Jay. Actually, I'm surprised. You haven't got strangled yet.
I keep checking. It's pretty smoky here. I have the windows closed right here. If you let blow out, I do have a fan that I set over there, blowing it away from the door out another window. But I'm waiting for the text message, like, hey.
Shame on you, Jay.
So the viewers don't know, I'm smoking a cigar in my attic, and my girlfriend's not fond of cigars, and asked her, I've smoked them secretly up here, and she's like banging on the door, like, what the fuck? The whole house smells like cigars. But I asked her before I came up, what do you think about me smoking a cigar during the podcast? She said, all right, but if you smell them, then you know. So far, so good.
Craig, how long have you been married?
It'll be 5 years this fall.
And I'm on 13, and I got to tell you, Jay, and Craig will confer, you're gonna hear it, buddy.
I'm not married yet.
That's all right.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Hey guys, the cigar is great, by the way. So for people that don't know, like me and Craig lived in San Francisco together, not together, but we lived in the same city for years before he moved to Singapore and I moved out to Sacramento. And we would always go grab some drinks at Zam Zam's, maybe Club Deluxe on Haight Street, Haight-Ashbury, and you lived right there. And one of my greatest Craig experiences is after the night of the bars, going to your house, which was kind of like underground, really cool spot in San Francisco, cool neighborhood. And you would, we were already feeling pretty good, but you'd whip up a dirty martini and you put it in my hand, you'd get one, and I'd sit on the couch and you have records everywhere. Craig is a music fanatic, and maybe to me, I'm not a music fanatic, but to me, it's pretty exciting. And you would go you put a record on, maybe play one song, half a song, whatever, maybe 2 songs, and then you would jump from that record to another record. But you wouldn't do it in like, oh, this is a rap record, let's go to another rap record, or a rock record to another. You would go, this producer produced Queen's album as well. And then this guitar player also played in this band. And it was amazing. I would just sit there like blitzed off my ass in amazement how you could just string together these different types of genres and eras of records. And it was pretty amazing. And then you started a Facebook type group. Anyways, it's an amazing thing. And I told Nick we have to ask about this because it's one of my favorite Craig stories, because I don't know if I ever told you that, but it was a sight to see. It was a cool experience.
Yeah, I remember that night, fuzzy as it was after a night out on Haight Street. But yeah, it was that was a lot of fun. We had grandiose plans of starting like a record, like a book club type thing once a month and doing it with music. That never happened. But one of those commitments that you make when you're pretty drunk and then just completely forget about it, or just think about it afterward and you're like, fuck that. But yeah, I did create a Facebook page, and I haven't been using it a whole lot. Maybe you guys I think you've inspired me now to fire that back up. And every now and then I'll, get a wild hair and find some music that I like. And I'm like, some of it is just, I need to share this with people, but I don't really have that many followers. So I don't think that's really it. I think it's more like, I don't want to forget about this song. I need to put it somewhere that I can remember it, come back to it. So I post it there too. So yeah, I'll post some stuff there. What is it? What did I name that page? I think it was Craig's Desert Island Jukebox is what it was. So I'll fire that back up and get some tunes out for you guys.
Well, I think you need to expand on it. I've been trying to nudge you into doing some type of video thing where, I don't know, somewhere. It'd be hard with the copyright issues, but man, it would be an amazing experience. So I know I would definitely be interested in watching that, because you put me on so much music that it's and reminded me of old music, or put me on music that's way old that I've never heard of, that I should have heard of, and it's I think it'd be a great experience everyone would enjoy.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to work through like the legality of like the copyright and all that stuff, and being able to share some of that stuff. But I'd love to get a channel out so that I can kind of share videos and things like this, but kind of throwing some samples of different music out there and kind of weaving through a common theme, because like you were saying, the music industry is like very incestuous, and it's like kind of how the different producers and labels and genres all kind of weave together is I think pretty fascinating. So it's fun to kind of put those things together, and you can do it a million different ways. So I'll put something together.
You have any recommendations right now on the spot?
Right now on the spot, here, let's just do this. Let's go into my Spotify and see what was one of the last things I listened to. I was drinking a bunch of beers last night and playing a bunch of music. Let's see here. I would say, if you haven't heard Kevin Morby, Morby, check him out.
All right, we'll do Kevin Morby. Everyone check him out. Craig, the music expert's recommendation.
Well, what genre is that?
Yeah, he's like indie rock stuff. Something I think you would like, Nick, is another artist called Alan, Aallon, rock and roll gangster. Listen to it. Late 70s, kind of funky soul rock stuff.
Right on. Check that out, everyone. Hey, so I got to ask, Craig, I mean, dude, I don't know, over the last probably 7 years or so, I've been really into big band type stuff. It's just good music to listen to while I'm working, and it's really just kind of mellow stuff, right? But you notice all these fuckers are singing each other's songs. It's just kind of this puddle of songs that they all share, and they all sing the same songs. I always wonder, I wonder what that would look like if we did that today. If rappers or musicians or any kind of musician did that today, they just sang each other's songs. I guess that's what you would call a cover, but
or sample.
Yeah, I think back then, there was a lot of. I think that was kind of the ultimate compliment, right? Was playing somebody else's song. It's kind of like paying ode to them, and getting it out there with maybe putting your own twist on it. I think also some of it was there there were a lot of songwriters who were, writing these songs independently for different artists. And it wasn't necessarily that artist's song. Maybe their version was the most popular one on the radio, but maybe they would write it for a label, and then that label would give it to a few different artists. So you'd see kind of some overlap in just like a few different versions of the song across different artists. So probably a few different reasons for it, but yeah, I think that there's less of that nowadays. I think everybody's more about writing their own music, except for like, Cardi B, and it takes like 17 people to write a song with like 30 words on it, right? So it's like, I don't know. It's just not as common these days. But yeah, I think it was pretty cool to see that back then, especially among jazz and big band and stuff like that, whereas everybody was just kind of playing those songs and putting their own twist on it. It was kind of fun.
Right. Well, not to mention like the comedic side of concerts. It was not only a musical concert. It was like, you also got a little comedy show. They joked around on stage, and it was kind of a whole show. Not just a concert. Yeah,
it was an experience. It was. You're right. It was like you would go for an evening of not just the music, but of like being entertained, and they would fill time between songs, but like with their personalities, and they would really let that shine through. It was more than just listening to the music. It was more, like you said, it was a show. It was an all-encompassing kind of entertainment act back then.
But you were, you were in SoCal, and you worked for like a record company, right? I mean, that's kind of where you started in the workforce.
Yeah. So yeah, two things. One, I had an internship at Universal in like early when I was in college. So that was pretty cool. Also, I worked, but for a much longer time, I worked at a record store for like 4 or 5 years in Ventura, down in SoCal. So that was a lot of fun. That's what really kind of kicked off my record collection, and then just like really expanded my knowledge within music, because listen to so much different stuff. That local area had kind of a big punk scene, but there's just like so much music at your fingertips, listening to other people who had, such different musical backgrounds. Some people were classical musicians who worked there. Other people, were, in just tons of bands throughout their lives, electronic bands, all kinds of different stuff. So I kind of got exposed to a whole bunch of different stuff. Old people, young people, all who had, different tastes in music, kind of exposed me to a lot of stuff. So that's kind of what formed a lot of my tastes, and kind of built a foundation for a lot of the stuff that I've grown fond of now, I guess.
So the record stores kind of helped spawn that, but if I remember correctly, the record store also helped spawn your marriage.
Yeah. I was so the way McKenna and I met is we were out at the bars one night, and I was out bar hopping with the boys, and she was out hopping around with one of her friends as well. And I was smoking a cigarette out front. She came up and bummed one off of me. And so we were chatting it up, and then I actually didn't get her number that night, but we were chatting for a little bit, and I'm pretty sure that I told her where I worked. And she came into my work 3 days later, and still to this day denies that she knew that I worked there. I know that she was thinking about me, and she wanted to go in there and follow up and talk to me some more. But no, I was working that day. She came in, and I saw what she was buying. She was buying like some Portishead CDs and some electronic stuff. And I was like, hey, there's a concert coming up in Santa Barbara, Massive Attack and Thievery Corporation, and that's what sealed the deal. So that's
attaboy, Craig. Making that move. That's not the Craig I remember.
Hey, I saw the opportunity. I saw it in. I saw that one of those common themes, one of those threads throughout the music. I went for it.
There you go, man. I love it. Hey, you know what? I had this show. I don't know if you ever knew that. I had a show for 2 years. It was through Sac State's kind of online radio studio.
Well, thanks, Craig Martinez, for coming on the podcast, and Lindsay Boyd from Lindsay, California, in Singapore now. And thank you so much for coming on, taking time out of your day. Check us out, subscribe, watertowerpodcast.com, and please subscribe, add comments, tell us what you like, what you don't like, ask us questions. We'll answer them. We'll make a normal segment. And thank you, everybody. Water Tower Podcast.
Peace out. Hey, that's the universe, baby.
That's awesome, man. Crazy thing is, I got a phone call too. It was from an old friend. He's like, "Hey, I heard an old podcast we did together. It's not for you. Don't do it. Just stop." I'm fucking around.
I was just about to say, you better tell him, fuck you. But I also have some things to share. But dude, we'll just jump right into it. We'll start off with like, what the show's about, and then I'll just pass it directly on to you, and you can talk about how it's affected you, and then you talk for a little bit. We'll just bounce off each other, and then I'll go, and then we'll go into like what's going on in the world and all this other bullshit.
Oh, cutting out.
Oh, fuck.
It's weird, like when you do DMT.
Dude, don't you ever just watch Fox though? Like, I mean, I don't ever watch Fox, but I look at like stuff on Twitter and stuff and like Instagram, like short videos. Like, I always think like, dude, there's got to be so many affairs. Like, dude, the women and men on there just seem so dirty. Like, they probably fucking each other all the time.
And I was like, oh shit, this shit real. Like, I wasn't prepared. I thought it was gonna be like, dude, but it's like, what? And I was just like, and then like, I was like, fuck, I gotta go next. I can't be a bitch. In the end, I was like, thank you for agreeing to have this threesome with me. They're like, oh, fuck, leave my hand. But I dragged it out forever. They had to keep playing with it. The teacher was like, keep going, keep going.
What's his name?
I don't remember.